Welcome to Design Thinking Games, a gaming and user experience podcast. Card-carrying UXers Tim Broadwater and Michael Schofield examine the player experience of board games, pen and paper role-playing games, live-action games, and video games. Play through the backlog on your podcatcher of choice and on the web at designthinkinggames.com.
So this began as an episode about geocaching, and geocaching is it's one of these things that in this era of like Dungeons and Dragons popularity and nerddom taking over pop culture, that geocaching feels like a Poindexterous, dorky as hell like thing that you embark on. Mm-hmm. But it's really pretty fascinating. It's the idea that you take your love of puzzle solving, of discovery, and you and you take it outside. There is like a robust community there.
Yeah, so I know nothing about geocaching, and when I first heard the term, I literally for probably a half a year or more thought it was what I now know is to be frisbee golf. And I swear, and I thought it was like, oh, you take an app out and you are playing with your friends at frisbee golf and it tracks it or does something. And then people, kind of my understanding was like, oh, you go to these specific places and do these things. And I did not. So I know nothing about geocaching at all. But you've played it before, right?
It's hard to say you've played it. Like it almost doesn't feel like a game. What it is it's a modern treasure hunt. The whole idea that you have a map and X marks the spot, and you find your way to a desert island and you dig a hole or you perform some task. These are things that like Sea of Thieves brings in back into pop culture or whatever, where everyone just kind of sails around finding treasures, that treasure finding thing. And what geocaching does is take this, let me rewind for a second. So there's this idea, there's a sort of game, this sort of global or national or large scale scavenger hunt style activity. It's hard to call it a game, but activity that you partake in, called letterboxing, right? And it's really the idea that at its very simple is hey man, you've got a shoebox and you wrap it in some plastic or whatever, you make it waterproof, you go somewhere, you put a couple of trinkets in there, you bury it, and you leave clues to its location. Hopefully someone goes and finds it.
So it's like treasure hunt or scavenger hunt.
It's a scavenger hunt, but now ever since in 2000, I think it was actually the year 2000 when GPS became a readily available thing. And you can imagine how this, you can imagine the timeline of people partaking in geocaching increasing from those who had extremely expensive GPS devices up to 2007 when you had a GPS in your phone, up to now. And the idea is that, it's a scavenger hunt with GPS coordinates.
And wait, everyone contributes to it, everyone hides, and everyone finds?
Yeah, exactly. So you can just find. So here's the basic premise. There are specific apps or lists. Some are obscure. There are geocaching lists on the deep web. And, it's your access to these lists of endpoints that really, kind of determine, it's part of the game. But, there's a geocaching app. You can just look it up. You can pull it down. And basically what it is hey, around you, there's a geocache here at this coordinate. It's using a Google map or an Apple map overlay, and there's a pin drop. But the idea is hey, at this coordinate, which might be in, let's go easy, right? It's in a park and it's at this thing. Somewhere in this coordinate down to within 100 meters or so is buried treasure. It's hidden. There are some clues. The listing might say walk from the beginning point of the coordinates, walk north 100 steps until you are under the eaves of a great oak then look up,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or something like
Oh,
that.
wow.
And so what would happen is you go there and you like look up and you see like a spider on the tree and you're like, oh shit, what a big spider. And you realize it's fake. And you figure your way out. You figure your way up the tree. Look under the spider. The spider is tied to like by a long piece of like thread or fishing line. It's tied to like a little fist-sized package that's in the knot of the tree, and in that package is I don't know, like a little like keychain, something for you to take, and a logbook. The idea is that you document yourself, like Tim was here at this time, and you put it back, and maybe you leave like a little treasure for someone else. But that's it. That's the game.
Is it? Oh, wait. I have like 3 questions.
Yeah.
Literally orbiting around that. So who started it? And then I guess the second question is it possible to go to them and there be nothing there? Like, could someone has taken a gift, but someone has not left it or replaced it or replenished?
Good question about the starting. So letterboxing as a game started in the 1800s, right? This is a thing that people did. Treasure hunting, is like, you can imagine like a couple of dorks like me and you walking around before the Civil War, clearly far in the north. And we're like, boy, did you read that Robinson Crusoe? It's like, how fun would it be to like, to bury some treasure? And you're like, but I did bury some treasure, Schofield. Onward. And then, so like,
tally ho, good man.
Tally ho, good man. And that's where it began. We are super privileged to be brought to you by Dice Tower Theater because our show is designed to tease apart mechanics and other aspects of game design so we can better understand why they impact us. But this wonkery didn't start because we were born middle-aged. It began with fandom and escapism. When we're throwing dice at the table, we're not hyper-focused on reasons why someone gets advantage. We are there.
The blue flame has the great risk, correct?
Are you sure, Sophie? I foresee a path you can understand, let alone tread, but you will have to walk yourself.
As they venture into their 4th season, over 12 hours of story, Dice Tower Theater rekindles that original feeling we get.
Are your minds made up too? Then step into the room behind me, adventurers. I wish you find what you seek and can heal your world.
Dice Tower Theater, wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
So the other thing is that this is governed by by ethics, right? So there is a strong ethic that you don't fuck up or you don't steal it or you take a thing and you leave a thing and stuff like that. 100% you can get there. It's no longer there. Because it's out in nature, like maybe like someone like literally chopped down the tree. Whoops. Or stuff like that. So
basically the game that you're playing has an agency or a federation basically that says like, hey, when you do this, you have to leave this. Or when you do it, like check it in on the site or whatever. So there's like an agency and rules.
Yeah. So the organization is like around the provider of the list and the coordinates. But these providers can be decentralized. Like for a while, there was like a whole like 4chan, like decentralized like letterbox the game. There, you can find others that are coordinates based off like not Bitcoin, but like blockchain, like blockchain geocaching, so that there is no central authority there. And it's one of those things where they get increasingly more difficult. So my example of the park is fine. That's fun. And in a way that you can imagine that if you had a real treasure map that literally everybody else had, the treasure will be picked over or whatever. But there are maps that are hard to get. And you might find them up like midway up a mountain or, like 100 feet under the sea, right? Like things like this, where the adventure ultimately becomes the journey to get to this coordinate.
Yeah, but once you get there, it's like a 300-yard area, like let's say square foot or
That's
circle or
that's
whatever.
the GPS, right? But that's really kind of like the.
So it gets you to there physically, and then you have to kind of not just look, but then also take the clues or whatever you had, and you legit have to search, So
well, and there's different kinds. So like the coordinates might just get you to clue 1, right? And I was like, okay, the next is like. And you can imagine this is in some kind of like riddle verse, and it will tell you the next location is like in a forest 3 miles to your east, right? And that location is not on the map, right? So it's one of those things where, like, depending on, it's really up to like whoever goes in and places the cache, and kind of like the ethics of the list that you're adhering to. How, I don't know, how much hand holding you give the person. But that's the idea. It's like it's the thinking is that it's a gamified thing with an actual leaderboard to a point, and that leaderboard might just be some notes like inside a very rare cache, or activity and like that's part of the app, but it forces you to go hiking for the most part.
Yeah, this reminds me so much of kind of Ready Player One, to where it's like, well, we can give you the clue. The clue just gets you there, but then you have to find the key, and then once you have the key, you have to find the gate that the key unlocks. So it's very cool. So the scenario that you were describing with the spider. Can you describe? What's something you said you've played this before? Was that something that you experienced?
Yeah, so that was one of my first ones. I had one that was in the median between like an expressway, which was kind of like dangerous to get to. But yeah, it's often like that. The cache itself. I've never actually found like an ammo box. Like oftentimes, like if you look it up, there's like an ammo box and it's totally waterproof and it's full of shit. Everything that I find is like a fist-sized plastic wrapped like dice pouch full of stuff, and like they're small and they're wedged into some like weird spots.
That's cool though. Still cool. Yeah. No, I've never done it, and I've always wondered what it was, and so.
It's a pretty cool thing. So like, so yeah, to your point, like Ready Player One is very, it's the whole like gumshoe 3 clue thing, right? It's the idea that there's a puzzle, and at a glance, the idea that like, oh, here's a GPS coordinate and right there is treasure. I mean, that doesn't seem super fun, but you find those that lead to other caches, to other caches, and you end up going down kind of like a rabbit hole. Like some of this is like, coming up in like pop culture, like there are really like there's a whole like game plus story called like Rabbids, where Rabbids is a game,
Nintendo Switch game. I don't think we're like a PlayStation game.
Like Rabbids, where the idea is that there are lists that are dangerous to play. Right, because you like, or some are occult based lists where what you're doing is, the equivalent of like learning how to open the puzzle box in Hellraiser, or you're going to like haunted locations,
or like a crazy serial killer put out an elaborate thing and then you followed it and now you're his prey.
Oh man, that's amazing.
Geocache killer.
The Geocache
copyright killer. Design Thinking Games 2022.
Watch out for our next game. Guys, playtesting is hard. If you've ever done that, you know how much of a struggle it can be. And if you haven't, you need to. It's part of good game design. That's why I'm super happy that this season of Design Thinking Games is brought to you by Playtest Kit. Literally playtestkit.com, which is designed by Steve Bromley to help us draw reliable, evidence-based conclusions that inform our design decisions. It gives us all the templates and guidance that we need to test prototypes, recruit, pick the right method, interview people, write surveys, and most importantly, configure and analyze the data so that we can do something useful with it. So whether you've never run a playtest before or you're a pro, this kit is going to save you time and help you get more value from each test you run. So sign up for free resources or go to get the full kit at playtestkit.com. And for the rest of the season, this season only of Design Thinking Games, use the code DESIGNTHINKING to get 10% off. And let Steve know who sent you.
One of the other things we were talking about, like as fitness, this is getting you outside. So this topic has turned into like it was kind of like an augmented reality game, but it's like a fitness game. Or then there's the whole topic of like the gamification of exercise and fitness and eating, and then exploring the physical world outside of your house, geocache. So I'm wondering, there seems to be with geocaching, is there a point where you get to the location or that you're using an app or that you're using it more so in, kind of more than just getting to the 300-foot area?
That's sort of where like Niantic comes in, right? So if you think about like Pokemon Go, it's not dissimilar. It's like you, in that case, there's kind of more of a browsing quality where you're looking around and hoping that you stumble upon a Pokemon.
Yeah.
But there are specific locations and gyms, and gradually word gets around that, a certain corner of like a university has a certain Pokemon, and these are different circles on a Venn diagram that definitely overlap.
Mm.
So the geocaching apps I've only ever used are just maps, right? That like have little coordinates on it. But it's kind of the same thing, like the Pokemon Go, the Harry Potter, like all the Niantic things. I never played Ingress, but it's not dissimilar, except that leans more into the augmented reality thing. But you're still scavenger hunting around, and then there's just more of a game or more of a video game aspect to it, more of a competitive aspect to it. Whereas like geocaching is the journey more than the results.
Yeah, and I know that there's also like such things as geocaching trails, right? Like places you specifically go to, there's also like places that I'm assuming that also can happen at places that you want to visit outdoor, place of like beauty or significance or waterfalls and so the thing that conversely, and I've played Ingress, Pokemon Go, Harry Potter, Wizards Unite, and I'm currently cracked out on Pikmin Bloom, is that it was exciting and new. I think when it was Niantic is amazing. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. Their partnership with Nintendo is phenomenal. I'm here for it. I prefer Pokemon, the actual role-playing game, versus the card game or Pokemon Go. Yeah, so just not a Pokemon Go person, because you're just like obsessively catching and battling. Yeah. There's nothing else to it. But when Ingress first launched, I love the fields that you could draw areas and you were on teams and you're trying to protect areas, and the longer you can protect areas, the more energy and resources you get. And then it soon became apparent that, okay, this is every post office, every city building, every statue, or monument, right? And then people could submit their own. I submitted 2 or 3 to Ingress when I played, which was like, there's a memorial statue in a town close to me locally. I submitted that and it got added.
Wow.
So it was kind of definitely the data that's building out like, okay, memorials and places. But then now I found that when you kind of go to Pokemon Go, Harry Potter, Wizards Unite, and even Pikmin Bloom, it's just like, oh, this is now a gym or a a wizard tower dual place. I can't remember with Harry
Right,
Potter.
yeah.
But in Pikmin Bloom, it's like a place where like a fungus infestation can happen, you know? So then you, so it's neat, but I think now, like when I hear you describe and talk about geocaching, right? Getting you to an area and then actually having to look and interact, solve riddles and clues versus, I know where the gym is. I know where the post office is. There just seems to be, it's more about grinding, right? And so Pokemon to me is just like grinding. And then there's all these rules, people that say once you get over level 20, like it's horrid. Like it's just so bad.
Oh, really? What's bad about it?
Well, most people, because it takes forever and you have to be very strategic about what things you do to get experience because it takes so much experience to go up to like level 30 or higher or whatever. And then it just becomes, well, why are you playing now? Like,
Sure.
You don't get anything, you know, and it's just like they could always add another 10 levels to it, or World of Warcraft at another 50 levels, or, you know. But I mean, having said that though, I like Harry Potter. It was cool. I like Pokemon. That kept me there. Ingress was the whole sci-fi secrecy thing. And the whole thing about Ingress and the success of it, kind of as it relates to geocaching, I think is the exclusivity of it. Like, it was a year that they only gave limited invites out. It was kind of like Facebook strategy, right?
Oh,
and then you wanted to get chosen. You wanted to win a survey or do all this stuff. And so they had all these people who were like chomping at the bit to be users, and they were just like, oh, do surveys for us, do this for us, spread our social media, like it. And it's just like, oh my God, you just created an army of people because they want the exclusivity to do your own marketing.
Yeah, you're right. There's kind of like an element of like the niche, right? Like you can imagine that, like, oh, you know, because it's weird to get into or hard to find or hard to get access to, you know, there's sort of like the high friction point of getting into the hobby itself, that suddenly, you know, all the players are bound a little bit closer together because they kind of, you know, made it through that hurdle. Yeah, that's really interesting because like I remember when like Pokemon Go came out, man, I mean, like it was.
I still know people to this day that you'll be out in public, like visiting a museum or doing something, and they'll just be on their phone, like catching Pokemon.
It made news, right? I mean, it was kind of like fascinating. It was like one of the first. It was the first zeitgeist I can remember where, media outlets were actually talking about like, all these like pasty kids who have never seen the sun are finally wandering around the park or wandering into traffic or wandering off cliffs, like some kind of like, you know, like
dude, on the small business side, it was cool. Like on the small business side, it was just like, hey, come in, get this Pokemon favorite drink or whatever. We have a Pokestop next to us. Feel free to check out because you can only check in like 3 times. What I mean, or something. But they were just like, oh, show us your highest level Pokemon. And if it beats our daily average, we'll get you a free milkshake or, you know, or stuff like I saw it everywhere in businesses. You know?
Yeah. How brilliant.
Design Thinking Games is a proud affiliate of Hunt a Killer. Enter the world of Hunt a Killer in their newest murder mystery season, Mallory Rock. This realistic murder mystery game delivers high-quality, handcrafted evidence that brings a fictional case to life. Can you solve a mystery with Hunt a Killer? Go to designthinkinggames.com/huntakiller or click on the banner at the bottom of our website.
Yeah, and I will say this, like, I like Pikmin. I love the game. Are you familiar with Pikmin at all?
Yeah, I'm familiar with Pikmin. Yeah, I have not played Pikmin Bloom, though.
Okay, yeah, so I loved Pikmin ever since I played it on GameCube, and it was just like, oh, you're this little alien guy who lands on a planet, and then you basically have all these little plant people who want to work for you and love you, and you basically do this, like, you give them nectar and they will do fruit for you or get fruit for your battle stuff. And then I love the sequels and I've played all the games. And when I actually like Pikmin Bloom better than Ingress, Pokemon Go, and Harry Potter Wizards Unite And the reason why is because it is an AFK kind of game, like a casual, while you're walking, you can plant flowers and collect fruit. And it doesn't even require me to look at the phone a lot while I'm walking, but it gives me credit for walking. And it's like, oh, you've walked this far. This is how many flowers you've planted. And then you can kind of keep walking and add new flowers and colors and types of flowers. And you can make your actual neighborhood or your yard or whatever, actually look like a digital garden.
Wow.
And exert control over, not control, that sounds like nefarious. Exert power, control. No, but actually like it tickles that creator kind of thing where you're like, oh, cool, I can make my own garden. And
so it seems, is it true to say then that, so it seems like whereas like Pokemon Go and Harry Potter, you play by going to a locale, but you're still like consuming, you're on the receptive end of like whatever content Niantic put out. So in Pikmin, you can actually like create, like you have creative powers.
Oh, yeah. When I was at PAX East, everyone was playing Pikmin, and the entire Boston Convention Center looked like this lush, verdant flower garden that was beautiful. They had all these different types of flowers and giant flowers, and it was like filled with fruit. And like, so when you walk through it, all your Pikmin are like grabbing fruit and you're planting flowers. So like, I can see what you're doing, and you can see what I'm doing in regards to planting flowers. And I think, and between Niantic and Nintendo, I think this is gold. So AFK games are games that you can get usually on a mobile device. And it plays itself. It auto levels up itself. You just kind of log in every so often, make choices, design stuff, whatever, and then you can just let it play itself. And so Pikmin Bloom is like this nice, great, cool area where there's a hybrid of an AFK game and a walking game and a Nintendo worker placement game, right? And so that sounds very complex. Like, hey, you can create your own garden, you control your workers, you do worker management. But it's also, you don't kind of have to be there to play because it counts your steps. It's a kind of an AFK game and things will grow themselves. And, and so I'm really liking it. And so that's why I'm geeking out about it and talking about it a lot. And it gets me out. I've noticed walking. Like, I actually want to walk because of it. So
that's the hard part, man. Like, I love the idea that, you can plant a garden. It makes me think the promise of the HoloLens, like back in the day, and how you could take, your Minecraft server to the real world and like construct. There's something that's really attractive about the idea that either through, the window of your phone or, in the future, maybe a pair of glasses you slide on, that you decorate your space and you can see the decorations of others. And there's something that's ultra attractive about that. It almost doesn't feel like a game, right? It feels more like collaborative art, And
I've always loved the sci-fi, I love sci-fi movies, and I love it when they render like the internet or computer user interfaces in sci-fi movies as being like an overlay on reality.
Yeah.
But all the user interfaces kind of seem to be in like augmented reality over real space and you're out in the real world. Like, you don't have to be limited to electricity or cable internet or, you're very
tied to a monitor or to a keyboard. Yeah. Yeah, it's this is like the science fiction theme of like, technology ultimately liberating you from like the cubicle you find yourself in, whether that's literally in, a business office or, kind of like the, many of us are remote now. And we're confined to the house because that's where the shit is, and so there's something like,
I travel and work all the time.
Do you?
If I'm actually if I'm going on a trip, I will use my phone as like a wireless hotspot. Sure. You know what I mean? And or cars now have wireless. So you can actually work and get Wi-Fi in the car, but it just connects through a cellular connection, but can be used as a Wi-Fi hotspot. And I don't know. Yeah, I definitely feel like we are now at a more time than ever historically where we could actually, be completely mobile, work on the go. We could actually, kind of do that. And so I love it.
I love the, I love the idea of being these things like untethering you from your devices. Games that you can play without having to be next to a console or to your like powerhouse machine or something like that. Are like really attractive, especially the ones that have some sort of like community aspect. There's a kind of like weird gamification to co-working spaces, right? And like finding one near you and going and again working, or there's a weird kind of gamification to the whole like digital nomad lifestyle, about like just about like how nomadic can you actually be.
I'm for it. Like I'm totally like utopian, not dystopian. I'm trying to have a positive outlook. And the thing is the fact that people can work with wireless hotspots, they can move. It doesn't really matter. Then you have an offices being structured now to where they have hotel desks. So you can just kind of go in, use a desk for the day, but you don't have to be back at that office. Maybe you're not back at that office. I don't know. But then with apps and games, and I think there's this kind of version is like, with computers and stuff, we're all going to be like Matrix plugged in to where we're just like our bodies have atrophied or they've gotten really obese, like WALL-E, the Pixar Disney film. And I love this. It's like, no, it's more like Horizon Forbidden Dawn. Take the tech with you out into nature, and you can connect on the Wi-Fi. And I love that.
I definitely waffle back and forth between being a technological optimist and not. And like, generally I think, no, I mean, I don't think a future, like perhaps like, a Matrix is before us, but I think, the first step to that is, like recommuning with, the actual outside and nature and real people, where, and it's just, and what the tech is just kind of like an extension of like function. So like, you can meet with your buddies and continue the conversation at any kind of distance, but it's not at the expense of ever meeting with your buddies or ever going outside or anything like that. So so like in the moment you find me as a technological optimist, I definitely waffle the other way. But I'm with you. I think this kind of thing is like really interesting, and like as the devices in our pockets become increasingly more powerful and like interconnected, interdependent with like our stuff, the ability to like like create leaderboards around just kind of like random shit is like really kind of like attractive. Those of you who enjoyed this or any of the prior episodes, give us a Star Heart favorite on designthinkinggames.com or your podcatcher of choice. We've got a robust backlog. Go back and listen to it. We also offer some ads. Perhaps you heard a good one just like a few minutes prior. They're super affordable, so if you got something you want to promote to a like-minded audience, look us up. And we're on all the social medias, largely Twitter and TikTok as Design Thinking Games. We've been talking a lot about like a newsletter, and I think we actually have like some content from like interviews we've been working on, and some stuff like that. So subscribe to our newsletter if you want to hear more from us.
Thank you for listening to the Design Thinking Games podcast. You only have so much time, and it means a lot you shared it with us. To connect with your hosts, Michael or Tim, visit Design Thinking Games on TikTok, Twitch, and Twitter. DMs are open. You can also check out designthinkinggames.com, where you can request topics, ask questions, or see what else is going on. Until next time, game on.